I confirm starting in January 2026, thousands of international graduates will be compelled to leave the UK.
That nearly half of the UK's millionaires are now considering leaving, over fears the new Labour government will increase taxes on them. That's the finding of a survey that claims 47% of the millionaires they contacted said that they were more likely to leave the UK now than before the general.
Why should I put money into the UK when they're just going to take half of it?
The most millionaires have left the UK this year. Many millionaires are leaving.
Well, it's one of the reasons why I want to get out of the UK as well. I've got a small business. I've built it from nothing. As it grew, like a big tax bill came on my lap that I didn't expect. I was like, what? And then I didn't realise that I had to charge this and pay that because of earning this. Well, not earning. I sold that much. It's not even profit, bro. It's just how much I sold. Bro, it's ridiculous. And it made me think, well, what's the point?
So people ask us all the time, why do you leave the UK so often? And it's mainly because building wealth in the UK is actually just really difficult. Like, it's not easy building wealth here for a number of reasons. And I thought we could just go into it.
So when you think about building wealth, there's two sides to it. One is about building your income, and the second one is about building your assets. Now, it's really difficult for you to build your income and improve your income generation ability over here just because of how many taxes are coming at you.
The shift did not begin with an announcement. It began with suitcases. At first, the United Kingdom barely noticed. A few professionals here, a handful of families there, students choosing different destinations, entrepreneurs quietly relocating their businesses. But by the time officials began paying attention, the movement had already grown too large to ignore. Thousands were leaving the UK for Africa, not as tourists, not as aid workers, but as settlers, investors, and long-term residents. And they were doing it with urgency, convinced that waiting until after 2026 would be too late. The reasons were deeper than headlines and far more structural than politics alone. For years, the United Kingdom sold itself as a land of opportunity, stability, and global access. But beneath the surface, pressure had been building. Housing costs climbed beyond reach, energy bills rose faster than wages, taxes increased while public services strained under demand. Young professionals found themselves working longer hours for shrinking futures. Retirees discovered that savings no longer stretched as far as promised. Entrepreneurs faced regulations, costs, and competition that suffocated innovation before it could breathe. Meanwhile, Africa was changing in ways the UK failed to notice. Across West Africa, Southern Africa, East Africa, and parts of North Africa, new cities were rising. Infrastructure expanded, digital economies flourished, renewable energy projects powered entire districts, trade zones attracted global capital, African governments simplified residency processes, encouraged foreign investment, and welcomed skills instead of restricting them. The contrast became impossible to ignore in the United Kingdom. A generation felt stuck. In Africa, that same generation saw motion. The first wave consisted of remote workers. British professionals realized they could earn global incomes while living in African cities where rent was lower, food was affordable, and quality of life felt tangible again. Reliable internet, modern housing, co-working spaces, and international schools shattered outdated perceptions. Africa was no longer a gamble, it was an opportunity. Families followed next. Parents in the UK grew anxious about rising costs, overcrowded classrooms, and uncertain futures. In African countries offering international curricula, bilingual education, and community-driven schooling, families found balance. Children played outside, commutes shortened, community life returned. What the UK had slowly lost, Africa appeared to be rebuilding. Retirees made another significant wave for many in the United Kingdom. Retirement had become a calculation filled with fear. Healthcare delays, shrinking pensions, rising living expenses, and isolation weighed heavily. African destinations offered warm climates, active communities, accessible healthcare, and the dignity of living comfortably without constant financial stress. Retirement stopped feeling like survival and started feeling like life again, but the most surprising group was business owners. Small and mid-sized UK businesses were relocating operations to Africa at accelerating speed. Manufacturing, logistics, software development, creative industries, and service firms found that African markets offered fewer barriers and more growth. Governments in Africa competed to attract them, offering tax incentives, land access, startup support, and simplified compliance systems. In the UK, bureaucracy slowed ideas. In Africa, momentum rewarded them. The tipping point came when British professionals realized Africa was no longer catching up. In many sectors, Africa was leapfrogging. Digital banking systems in Africa moved faster than legacy institutions in the UK. Renewable energy adoption progressed quicker. Mobile commerce reached deeper populations. Construction timelines shortened. Business licensing streamlined. Innovation became necessity, not luxury. Africa had no patience for stagnation, another factor. Driving the exodus was psychological. In the United Kingdom, uncertainty became a permanent condition. Elections, policy reversals, economic warnings, housing debates, and labor instability created a sense of waiting for improvement, waiting for relief, waiting for clarity. Africa, in contrast, projected ambition. Cities planned decades ahead. Governments spoke openly about growth, not decline. People believed tomorrow could be better than today. That belief mattered more than statistics. Social media accelerated the shift. British residents already in Africa documented daily life openly. They showed modern apartments in Nairobi, coastal living in Ghana, tech hubs in Rwanda, business districts in Nigeria, renewable-powered cities in Morocco, and lifestyle communities across southern Africa. The narrative changed fast. Africa was no longer portrayed as a place people escaped from. It became a place people moved toward. The UK government attempted to counter the trend quietly. Officials downplayed migration data and emphasized domestic investment plans, but the reality spread faster than reassurance. When people began selling property, closing businesses, and transferring savings abroad, confidence fractured, and then came the 2026 factor. Many leaving the UK believed a major economic and structural adjustment was approaching: rising public debt, tightening fiscal policies, demographic pressure, and long-term productivity. Concerns made them nervous. They didn't want to be caught reacting late. Africa represented not escape, but positioning for growth, positioning for flexibility. Positioning for a future where opportunity expanded instead of contracted. Africa also offered something the UK increasingly struggled to provide: access to markets, access to influence. In the UK, ownership felt distant. In Africa, participation felt real. African nations actively invited skills, not just capital. British engineers, educators, healthcare professionals, developers, architects, and consultants found themselves welcomed into ecosystems where their expertise mattered. Instead of being one applicant among thousands, they became contributors shaping new systems. The social shift surprised many. British migrants expected cultural distance. Instead, they found openness, collaboration, and shared ambition. African societies, shaped by rapid change, adapted quickly. Communities formed across borders. New identities emerged, not British abroad, not African hosts, but joint builders of something new. The UK, meanwhile, watched from the sidelines. Airlines quietly added more Africa routes. Property agents specialized in outbound buyers. Financial firms expanded Africa desks. Universities established African partnerships as student flows shifted south. Each move confirmed what officials hesitated to say aloud. The movement was real, and it was accelerating. What frightened UK policymakers most was not the numbers, but the profile. These were not desperate migrants. These were skilled professionals, investors, taxpayers, innovators, the very people the UK depended on to sustain its economy, and they were leaving voluntarily. Africa had not advertised itself aggressively. It simply evolved while the UK stalled. That was enough, by the time public debate acknowledged. The decision had already been made in thousands of households. Conversations ended with the same sentence: better now than later, before 2026, before costs rise again. Before doors narrow, before opportunity shifts completely. Africa did not pull them with promises. The United Kingdom pushed them with pressure, and as the movement gained speed, one truth became impossible to deny. This was not a temporary relocation wave. It was a long-term realignment. Africa was no longer waiting for the future. It was becoming it.